All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about a massive shift in the nature of war, one that's happening as we speak. This isn't just a small step forward. Some experts are calling it the single biggest change in global security since the invention of the atomic bomb. Yeah, you heard that right. So what's going on? Let's break it down.
For the longest time, the rules of war were pretty simple. Bigger is better. Think massive aircraft carriers, billion-dollar stealth bombers. That was power. But that whole playbook is getting ripped up. A totally new kind of threat is on the scene. And it's small, it's cheap, and it's smart. We're talking about a real David versus Goliath situation, but for the 21st century.
And this really gets us to the central, kind of mind-blowing question of our whole explainer. How is it possible that a drone, something that costs maybe 20,000 bucks, about the price of a decent used car, can pose a real threat to a billion-dollar warship? The answer to that question is changing everything. Okay, so to really get how this is happening, we've got to look at the new rules of the game. Let's dive into the core idea that's flipping the modern battlefield completely upside down. And that core idea has a name: strategic asymmetry. It sounds complicated, but it's not. Basically, it's when a smaller player, someone without a huge military budget, uses cheap, off-the-shelf tech to go toe-to-toe with a superpower. It's the ultimate equalizer. It's how the little guy can suddenly land a massive punch. So what's in this new digital toolbox exactly? What's the engine behind this whole revolution? Well, our source material points to two big technological forces that have kind of hit the scene at the exact same time. First up is something called AI democratization. And that just means that powerful AI isn't locked up in secret government labs anymore. Since around 2014, even super advanced agencies like DARPA started making their research public. And the result of that? The genie is out of the bottle. This stuff is available to pretty much everyone. And we're not talking about some vague, abstract idea here. We're talking about real, powerful, open-source tools. Things like Google's TensorFlow, PyTorch, even the kinds of models that power things like ChatGPT. These are tools that anyone with some technical skill can just download, and they can use them to build things that, not long ago, would have been considered military grade. And this table, wow, it really shows you the fallout. Just look across the board. In basically every area, that old advantage the big powers had is just shrinking. Let's take intelligence gathering, also known as ISR. You used to need multi-billion-dollar spy satellites. Now, you can combine commercial satellite photos with some open-source AI and get shockingly good results. Or cyber warfare. Elite national security teams are now facing off against small, agile groups using AI to create super smart malware. It's a whole new ballgame. All right, so that's the AI piece. Now let's look at the second driver, because this is where it all comes together. We're talking about the explosion of low-cost autonomy. So cheap but really effective drones. Drones for the sky, for the sea, even for underwater. And the crazy part? They can be mass-produced, sometimes with something as simple as a 3D printer, just about anywhere. Okay, so this isn't science fiction. This stuff is happening right now. Let's get into the real-world examples. Because when you combine these two things, that easy-to-access AI and those cheap, autonomous drones, that's when you see this David and Goliath story play out for real. And the results are, well, they're pretty stunning. And here we are, back at this number, $20,000. Just think about that. That's all it can cost to put a military asset worth hundreds of millions, maybe even $1 billion at risk. This is the heart of it all. This is the economic mismatch that makes this whole thing so incredibly disruptive. There's a name for this. It's called a cost imposition strategy. And here's the really clever part. The goal isn't necessarily to sink the battleship. The real goal is to make your enemy go broke trying to defend against you. I mean, think about it. If they have to use a $2 million missile to shoot down your $20,000 drone, you're winning. You are absolutely winning the economic battle, even if you lose the drone. And this strategy is not just a theory. It's being used all over the world. You look at Ukraine, they're using homemade AI drones to get intel that can compete with what the superpowers have. You look at Iran and the Persian Gulf, using sea drones to create what one source called a poor man's blockade. And it's not just nations. Azerbaijan, even groups like ISIS, are using this cheap, smart tech for everything from winning air battles to creating AI-driven propaganda. It's happening. The evidence is everywhere. Okay, let's pull back and look at the big picture for a second. What does all this do to the global balance of power? Because the consequences of this tech shift are huge. We're really talking about a whole new world. The source material lays out three massive consequences.
The first one is called the horizontal diffusion of power. Fancy term, simple idea. The good stuff, the powerful military tech, is spreading sideways. It's not just in the hands of a few superpowers anymore. Second, AI is blurring the lines. Cyber attacks, economic warfare, propaganda, they're all melting together into one big thing. And that leads to the third point, the deterrence gap. How do you stop an enemy you can't even see? An enemy with no country, no capital city to threaten back, when they're using swarms of smart machines? The old logic of if you punch me, I'll punch you back harder just doesn't work anymore.
So all of this leads to the biggest question of all, right? What happens now? What's the next chapter in this story? And what's the major challenge we're all facing? And look, the source material is incredibly direct about this. They don't pull any punches. This isn't just a new gadget or a faster plane. The conclusion is that this is, and I'm quoting here, the most significant transformation in global security since the nuclear era. Just let that sit for a moment. That's the scale of what we're talking about.
So what do you do about it? Well, according to the analysis, the answer for the big powers isn't just to build a bigger, more expensive version of the old stuff. The new secret sauce is something called doctrinal agility. And that just means being able to adapt. It means changing your plans, your teams, your whole way of thinking faster than the threat is changing. It's no longer a race of technology, it's a race of adaptation.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most unsettling question. For the better part of a century, we had a pretty clear picture of what a superpower was. It meant having nukes, giant aircraft carrier fleets, a booming economy. But now, in a world where game-changing strategic power is available to almost anyone thanks to AI and cheap drones, what does it even mean to be a superpower anymore?